This episode is sponsored by Cribble.
It's called a data lake because it's where your business problems go to drown themselves. Increasingly, that data is observability data, and we're all drowning in it already. You need an observability pipeline. The problem is that the real pipeline is in fact the one going from your wallet to a bunch of vendors. Cribble fixes this with a host of innovative answers in this space, including my personal favorite, the ability to replay observability data and send it to other places as if it were new when you need to. Keep your data economically without sacrificing flexibility all at the same time. Try it yourself for free with Cribble Cloud. Smash the link along with the like and subscribe buttons while you're down there and check them out. Or don't, and drown your company in the data transfer bill instead. It started as a meme, but it turned into a real video recently on the 17 ways to run containers on AWS. Apparently, my list continues to be a source of amusement inside of AWS itself. Most notably, I've gotten feedback, by which I of course mean some bullshit, on my selection of ways to run containers. My personal favorite is people on AWS service teams complaining that their service runs containers too, and I haven't mentioned it yet. Given that I do prefer to give the people what they want, today I'd like to talk about 17 more ways to run containers on AWS, which will bring us to 34. Now hang on a second, Corey, you might very well be thinking. It probably takes you a bit of time to produce these videos after you record them. Won't AWS launch several more ways to run containers during the production process? Oh, probably, but under that line of thought, I'll never produce anything whatsoever. So let's get into it. The 17 more ways to run containers on AWS. Number 1 is AWS Batch. Because a bunch of people wrote in to tell me that I forgot about AWS Batch in the first video, this is patently untrue. I remembered Batch, but it's super hard to run containers with it, despite that being a stated goal of the service. So I gave it a pass. But here it is now. Please stop emailing me. Ian. Number 2, AWS Nitro Enclaves. Nitro Enclaves are isolated compute environments on EC2 instances that protect and securely process highly sensitive data. The way you build enclave image files is, of course, via Docker images. It counts. Number 3 is AWS Step Functions by a technicality, because while people generally consider step functions to be a hilariously overcomplicated way of invoking Lambda functions, and they also support container tasks, it doesn't really count because no one's actually gotten these things to work unless they work at AWS, in my experience. If you can somehow overcome that level of inherent complication and get it to work, it will work with containers, if it works at all. On the other side of the difficulty spectrum, number 4 is VMware Cloud on AWS. You can use VMware Cloud on AWS to run Kubernetes via whatever the hell a Tanzu might be, and in fact, it's something actively recommended by VMware itself. This apparently solves the problem with Kubernetes. Well, what problem might that be? According to VMware, it's, well, we don't make money when you run Kubernetes yourself. There you go. Number 5, Amazon AppStream 2.0. This little-known service lets you stream desktop applications, which of course includes Docker Desktop, so of course it counts. Number 6 is somewhat similar, Amazon Nimble Studio. Now, Nimble Studio is a managed video studio solution. It automatically provisions and maintains a studio workstation running a desktop OS inside of an EC2 instance, upon which you can of course run containers. Number 7 is AWS Marketplace for containers. That's right, not only can you use AWS services to run containers, but you can use this one to buy them as well. Forget running containers, this service exists largely and primarily to first sell those containers to you, at which point you can then run them. Number 8 is Amazon SageMaker. Now, loath though I am to suggest using this machine learning monstrosity for anything, you don't have to twist that hard in order to get it to run containers. It is, in fact, AWS's recommended approach for many SageMaker tasks. Number 9, AWS Outposts. Servers in a rack that get shipped to your facility. absolutely opens up many different possibilities for customers, but really, I just want to use one for a second to run a container. And of course, to pay AWS handily for the privilege of having done so. Number 10 is Amazon Workspaces. Workspaces are virtual desktops running inside of AWS. Running containers is a standard part of many folks' usual desktop workflows with these things. It's a decent service once you're able to wrap your head around the idea of remote desktoping into a machine that lives in an AWS region. Number 11 is CloudShell. Now, AWS recently announced it, and CloudShell lives in the AWS console and lets you run CLI commands in your browser to interact with AWS without having to set all the credentials and tooling up yourself. You know, like Google, Azure, IBM, and every other cloud or cloud has for literally years before AWS deigned to give this to us. Now, unlike everything on this or the previous list of now 33 ways to run containers, it's completely free. Sure, AWS manages the container, but it does indeed run the container and lets you do an awful lot inside of it. Number 12 is AWS Device Farm. And Device Farm is one of those "are you messing with me or not" services based upon nothing other than the description. A bunch of Android and iOS devices sitting in a rack somewhere for testing mobile apps? Really? Well, it takes some doing, but you can indeed get Docker running on Android devices. Thus, you can use this ill-advisedly to run containers. Number 13 is Amazon GameLift, and GameLift apparently runs gaming servers for you. It natively supports containers as one specific architectural choice you can make, and it even goes so far as to help you out by suggesting leveraging Spot for it as well. If you're into gaming and you're using AWS, okay, give it a shot. Number 14 is AWS Cloud9. Now, Cloud9 is like GitHub Codespaces, only it's terrible, and it runs its own IDE on top of either a provisioned EC2 instance or, unlike Codespaces, your own environment that it can SSH into. You can absolutely leverage containers for this, and many folks intentionally do so as a part of their development process. Now, 15 and 16 I'm putting together because they are the Snowball Edge and the AWS Snowcone. They're more or less the same thing, just in different sizes. The Snowball Edge, which was named by somebody who very clearly did not take the time to look up either of the words snowball and edge on Urban Dictionary, and the Snowcone, which has won awards for being the worst and heaviest Kindle e-reader that Amazon has ever made, both support running EC2 instances on them. And naturally, you can then use those instances to run containers. And number 17 is Amazon RoboMaker. As of last year, RoboMaker explicitly offers support for container images. Aren't you just so very glad that they made that change? So there you have it, 17 more ways to run containers on AWS, bringing us to 34. I'm really hoping there isn't going to be a third video in this series, but AWS is going to AWS, so it's a near certainty that there will be. If you simply can't contain yourself, please feel free to unload on me in the comments and tell me what I'm getting wrong, because I'm sure there's lots of those things.